You know, these Epstein files are wild. You know, I'm trying not to be focused on the Epstein files too much, because the Epstein files at this point is just a distraction so we don't look somewhere. I'm trying to figure out what they want us to be distracted from. And the Epstein files go so deep that Ghislaine Maxwell is tied to 9/11. So a week after 9/11, someone emails Ghislaine Maxwell. It says, "Where's the real pilot?" Now, it seems like you're going to have to dig deeper a little bit to maybe find that answer, or we don't know what Ghislaine Maxwell replied, but essentially the government had Epstein's emails since 2001. You know, I mean, Epstein's been doing this stuff since the 70s and stuff, when he had to come into power, but Ghislaine Maxwell's dad was a huge Israeli spy. So most likely Ghislaine Maxwell and Epstein are Israeli spies as well. And now you're starting to see Israel connection to 9/11. Which you had a lot of people saying this a long time ago. You know, I was actually seeing this stuff, you know, in 2010, you know, but being in high school, you know, you're not sure what Zionism and all of this other stuff is, like these complex topics. You know, you just looking at Osama bin Laden, that's it. You know, that's it. That's all. Okay, one person, one bad guy is terrorist. And you had a few people been saying that it was Israel, but when you look at their comments and stuff, like it, you don't understand it. But now, you know, 10 years later, it's all coming out. And man, you have Ghislaine Maxwell tied to all the way to John Benet Ramsey, all the way to 9/11, and all the way to Epstein Island. He's tied to the Rothschilds. He ties to the Rockefellers. Like this dude is sitting kind of. And the crazy part, he's not even sitting at the top of the Illuminati. You know? I mean, Epstein, I guess, is like a general, he's the go-to person for these people, but he not royalty like that. You know what I'm saying? I'm starting to believe that a lot of these people have the power to, stay here, do some body transfer type ish, because wow, how do you have that much power to control stuff? I just have no clue. But damn, I did not think Ghislaine Maxwell, Epstein, and everything, had ties to 9/11. They just got their hands in everything. They amassed that much power. When you look at that burn notice stuff, the 007 stuff, I don't think Epstein was jumping out of buildings and doing stuff like that, but he was definitely pulling some strings. Epstein out here like the Silver Surfer. You know, his handlers tell him do this and do that, and he just makes it happen. That's really what Epstein's doing. Like, I mean, it's way deeper than sex trafficking at this point. You know, if Epstein was just a pedo sex trafficker, I think people would actually not saying they would accept it. They would just be like, okay, that's what Epstein was doing. That's what they were doing on that island. He was a pedo sex trafficker. And I think everyone would probably say, hey, you know, he had some dirt on people. He probably did kill himself, or somebody he was blackmailing him got him killed. You know, I think that would just end the conversation right there. That's what Epstein was. That's what they were doing on the island. Good night. But now it's way deeper than that. You know, it's way deeper. He wasn't just a pedo sex trafficker. You know, and not saying he just sex trafficked kids. I mean, he was trafficking everything. You know, weapons, money, blackmail, humans. You know, they were doing, you know, worshiping stuff. You know, so it had a religious aspect to it. You know, a money aspect to it. You know, they had their hands in everything. You know, at this point, the world was just their resort. And they did whatever they want with zero consequences. And, you know, Epstein at this point was like more powerful than the president. More powerful than any damn near leader out here. Like, the Epstein files really showed you that the so-called leaders ain't really have no power. They running behind Epstein. You know, they literally were running behind Epstein because they knew Epstein had money, I guess, and was going to fund them a lifestyle that they wanted. Little did they know, you know, whether they knew or not, honestly, I think Epstein money just made them how they was. Like, I mean, like, they was eating babies and all kind of stuff, you know. Was Epstein like, hey, partake in this and, you know, we'll throw you $50 million. You know, you want that contract? You know, and I think P. Diddy might have knew some of this stuff. And he kind of sort of mimicked that. You know, I think a lot of people in Hollywood are mimicking what Jeffrey Epstein was doing. But not on the scale of Epstein. You know, like, Epstein really was on some Bond villain type stuff. I don't even think James Bond ever fought someone as wild as Epstein. And Epstein is just one person. It's like, how many other Epsteins are out there? You know, that's just kind of crazy. But the crazy part, nothing's going to happen to these people in the files. We got this file dump, and it's going to take about 5 years for people to really sift through everything. And this is just emails. This is just emails. This ain't phone calls and stuff that, you know, text messages and stuff like that. Like, this is just emails. They didn't release the video footage of anything. Epstein got buku video footage. A lot of it, they say, you know, it's child stuff. But that's what the government is telling us. How do we know? That's what they say. You know, you might see a lot of celebrities and other stuff. Like, imagine all the blackmail tapes and stuff he got. They say Jeffrey Epstein had people installing cameras in Kleenex boxes. So imagine what they're talking about. I'm like, imagine what the government really has. And imagine what, like, for example, what if China, Russia, what if a foreign government hacked, the U.S. government and got all the Epstein files and released it? What if that happens? That'll be a bigger distraction. It's probably in the cards. I wouldn't be surprised if that happened. They would probably have to fake a nuke or something to just make people not look at that. But something is brewing up. The Epstein files is going to give the public about a good 2 years before they crash the economy again and let these rich people buy in low. Once you start seeing all these rich people sell off their stocks, it's coming. Remember 3 or 4 years ago, all the CEOs stepped down? Yeah, they stepping down because they about to crash that economy again. And boom, they're going to buy up all those cheap good stocks. But there's one last thing. The Gen Zs and the Millennials. I don't think they're going for it. But at the same time, I don't think they have the energy to even do anything about it. But that is just wild that Ghislaine Maxwell is tied to 9/11. I honestly didn't think they were involved in that. Like I said, everyone knew Jeffrey Epstein was like a creep. We knew they was doing something on that island. But we didn't know he went back this far. He ain't been having his hands tied in this stuff. Hell, he might be part of it. He might have got some of that $3 trillion that was missing. Who's to say Epstein didn't have $1 trillion? He may have $1 trillion. That guy really might have been playing ball. That demigod ball, that false god Baal or Ball, whatever. He might have been trying to be like him on earth. It's just wild, man. Stay prayed up. That's all you could do is stay prayed up. Because you really got enemies out here. All those kids went missing and all that. They probably was on Epstein Island getting put in a grinder to make meat patties or something. Like, that's what they... And that sounds crazy, but that's what they was doing in them emails. If you have free time or something, I would say, you could check it out. Check some of the emails out. But don't be, 200 hours, every single day looking at the Epstein files. Because it's not everything. And some of the Epstein files are fake. So if you didn't get it from, some YouTubers that, trust, that like a CoffeeZilla that really, really does his research. If you don't get it from somebody like that, sometimes take it with a grain of salt. But y'all like, comment, and subscribe, and let me know how shocked y'all are that Ghislaine Maxwell has ties to 9/11. I'm out.